Hi, I'm Francine Labossiere.
And I'm Christine Johnston, and we're the Hoof Geeks. Francine and I are in Houston, BC. It's a beautiful day, and we're on, what's our clinic schedule? We're about halfway now?
Yeah, halfway through August.
Yeah, till August, yeah. And we're going to be going to Vancouver Island.
Yes.
And a few more places in BC, and then back to Saskatchewan, and then back home. So we left home beginning of April, and we went to the Horse Expo in Red Deer, and had a few clinics in Alberta, and now we're out in BC. And yeah, I thought we'd do a little bit of a video, because at the clinics, you know, people want to know where we got our education, and that we're not just like some professionals call us two bored housewives that just wanted to trim feet. Well, no, actually we've got some education and some years behind us as far as learning equine podiatry. So we want to give you guys a bit of a background of how we started and where we came from. So when you come to a clinic, you're going to get a manual, or even when you do our online course, you're going to be getting manuals, and you'd get one of these each day. So you get day 1, day 2, and day 3. So every clinic, the students go, another book? I said, yes, another book. There's lots to know. So we wanted to make our introductions and tell us a little bit about how we got started. So I think I built the arena at our place in 2004, and then that's when you and I met, and we Francine came to a success-centered riding clinic with Robin Hood, who is actually Linda Tellington Jones's sister. So if you know T-Touch, that's where we met. Yeah. You know, and then she rode some of my horses. Then eventually, you and Dan built your arena.
Yeah, in 2009.
In 2009, and we started. You know, we kept in touch because, you know, we became friends, and boy, then we started learning a little bit about our horses a little bit more, because I mean, Robin Hood would say, oh, your horse is lame, and we were like, it is? We had no idea. And she says, yeah, we have a problem there, you know, you might have some laminitis. We had no idea what that meant. And then over time, I had a stallion. His name was Bud, and he was having some real hard times, and I was a week from putting him down, and Francine gives me a call and said, so you've got a clinic coming up. Who was her first? Barb
Fenwick.
Yeah.
She actually pretty much introduced this whole barefoot movement, if you want to call it that, to Manitoba in, 2011, I think.
2011 or 2010. Yeah.
So I was having trouble with one of my mares. I didn't know why she was so sore. The vet came. He said, yeah, her toes are a bit long. She's fat. The end. And it got so bad that I didn't know what to do. I was going to put her down too, but then I saw this one little poster somewhere close to my house. Barb advertising a one-day clinic in barefoot, and would we be interested in attending? So I called her. I told her the situation, and she said, yeah, we probably can help your mare. Okay. Hope is in the horizon. So I called Chris and a few other friends. I said, come down to my place. We're having a clinic with Barb, and see what she has to say.
Yeah, and boy, was that an eye-opener. She says, it's not the hoof that's the problem. It's your mare. Like, she's obese, and she's got laminitis. And
shouldn't be eating grass. And like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, back then.
She's a horse.
What do you mean you can't eat grass? And we all thought she was crazy.
Yeah.
Even James Wells said, you're crazy, right? Horses have to be on grass. And she says, no, they can't be when they've got laminitis. And boy, she was
dead on,
and way like she was 20 years ahead of her time.
Yes.
You know, so and by the time we figured out, you know, what was going on, and you couldn't lead her anymore. She'd even bite you.
She would bite me just trying to lead her to the barn.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she was getting regular farrier care, the vet came out when I thought it was necessary, and you know, what else are you supposed to do? I mean, I didn't know anything then.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Brandy was put down, same time as little Haley.
Yeah.
Haley was put down. And then Francine looked at me and said, we still don't know what's going on. And she says, I can't do this. I'm going to work. Can you cut her legs off? And I said, okay, because I mean, I'm the hunter, right? So, okay, this shouldn't bother me. It was hard. It was really hard. But when we processed down their feet and boiled them down, and then by that time, I was just starting to start the course with Claudia, my equine podiatrist down in South Carolina, and she says, "You want to know what's going on? You want to see what those bones look like." So when we boiled their bones down, I said to Francine, "Oh boy, like there was no coming back from this. It was way too degenerated, or
Eroded.
and eroded." And now when I hold it up, we hold it up in class, compared to a healthy foot, more than half of her bone was decalcified and dead, and about a third of it had eroded away, and then the other part was just dead. So yeah, it was a real eye-opener, I'll tell you what.
And knowing what we know now, it was due to long-term inflammation.
Yeah, and laminitis.
You know, she was only 6, but I mean, it starts eroding the bone quite quickly once they're inflamed like that. It's like people with diabetes. Their feet start, you know, you start tingling, then they start not feeling anything. It's just like people.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that horses are diabetic. They get diabetes just like humans do. So, you know, I enrolled in Claudia's class in 2011 and graduated in 2013, end of 2013, 14. And boy, that was a trip. I'll tell you what. I kind of thought I knew what was going on, and the education was unbelievable. So yes, I learned how to trim feet, but I actually became an equine podiatrist, which means understanding the diseases and the pathologies that a horse's foot has, the shape that a horse's foot has, that cause diseases like navicular and like laminitis and founder. And founder is a hoof shape form, laminitis is diabetes and insulin resistance, and navicular is a breakdown of the soft internal structures that start to cause problems with the entire foot and eventually make its way to the back, to the navicular bone. And when it gets to this point, guys, you can't do anything about it. But there are years and years and years of a knowledgeable, well-informed horse owner to prevent this from happening. And unfortunately, actually, we had a vet 2 clinics ago, and I said to her, "Why don't the vets know this stuff?" And she says, because we're not in the business of prevention, we're in the business of treating after it happens. So that's kind of sad. And again, another veterinarian said, directly from a vet, they said there's no money in sound horses. And I'm going, okay, this is bad. Like, because the horses suffer in silence, you know. So this is what our whole clinic is all about: awareness, becoming aware of problems before they happen, so you don't lose your precious horses, and you don't start acquiring ones or buying ones that have problems. So it's not just about trimming. You don't have to come to the clinic, you know, specifically to learn how to trim. You come to the clinic to learn about lifestyle and knowing what a healthy foot looks like, and knowing what a horse is needing for that. So then we ran into, when I was down taking my final exam, a written and practical trimming exam and continuing education, part of the clinic at Claudia's in South Carolina. I met, my test examiner was Jerry Schmidt. he was interesting, and he presented a 1-day course on dentistry, and he had all kinds of skulls lined up there. I was like, what's with the skulls? And he said, well, it's important to know what the teeth are doing to the rest of the animal and how teeth affect feet. And I was like, what? So when he was talking about equine dentistry and the pathologies that are also in the horse's mouth and how it can, he said, what blew me away, he said, you know, if dentistry is done wrong and the teeth aren't maintained or too much is taken off, you can cause the horse to become laminitic. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, this is way out there. How does a tooth cause laminitis? I thought this was an endocrine system. But then when we learned from Alicia Edwards, a lady that we work with, she's from Alberta, and she talks about the digestive system starts in the mouth. And then if the horse is not chewing enough or chewing too much, not producing enough saliva, producing too much, how that when it goes into the small intestines, too much saliva, it acts as a base. The base dissolves or dilutes the acid. So then the small intestines the stomach first. The stomach doesn't do its job because too much saliva will dilute the acid. So then the food is not broken down properly before it goes into the small intestines. And then the horse is exactly the same as people. Coincidentally, it's kind of what I got is SIBO, which is overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestines that are actually supposed to be in the large intestines. Then horses get bloated, and when that happens, they get laminitis and leaky gut syndrome and ulcers, all from the teeth. And if the teeth aren't functioning properly, that can lead to laminitis. And I was like, oh my goodness, like there's more to this puzzle. And I remember it was Robin Hood years ago. She says, what happens in the mouth never stays there. If something's going on in that mouth of the teeth, it never stays there. And you have to call qualified people that know about tooth pathologies. And that's a whole nother cat in the bag, okay? So we're not going to go into that. And then, once we started learning from Claudia and I got my certification and came home and told Francine this, and she says, we got to meet some of these people that, are out there that are also teaching. So the first one we met was Dr. Robert Bowker. And he's like Einstein with hooves. He worked at the Michigan State University for how long was that?
35.
35?
I think.
35 or 36 years?
Yeah.
And he told Francine, he said, the whole time I was there, I was never consulted once by the other veterinarians at the university. About feet. Because he started saying how the steel hoof can damage the internal structures by decreasing circulation and nerve function. Well, that doesn't go over well, okay?
Made a lot of non-friends.
Yeah. He had actually moved twice because of it. Because the farriers are going, what do you mean you can't put shoes on? He says, well, I'm not saying you can't. I'm just telling you what happens when you do, long term. So he was really cool. And when we saw him in 2012, we didn't understand anything. It was like airplanes going over the runway with all his information. We weren't ready for him, right? So it took us, 6 years before we actually started to understand what he was talking about. And now he's really a big pillar of foundation about how we understand the hoof. So yeah, I think I've taken all his information and made it palatable in our course, So I always say, if you come to our clinic, then when you listen to Dr. Bowker, you'll understand what he's saying. And then we met, before that, I had, and I think you had too, you knew who Pete Ramey and Jamie Jackson were.
Yeah.
And they were kind of on the frontier, and they were the founders of the natural barefoot trim, kind of following Mustangs. And Pete Ramey was also a farrier that said, I don't know why I'm having all these hoof problems, and why do they get better without shoes? And he looked into it, right? And then he started saying, well, I can see the errors of my ways, and I think I'm going to start to try to rehab these horses with boots and go barefoot. And he started seeing results. And then he became Dr. Bowker's friend, and Dr. Bowker told him why he's starting to see the changes without shoes. And then we met Thomas Teskey. And Thomas Teskey, he's really cool. He's the nicest guy. Oh my goodness.
He's a vet.
Yeah, he's a veterinarian in Arizona. And Thomas, if I get this wrong, forgive me. But I remember when we first talked to him, he said, yeah, I have, 3,000 acres. And I think it's a second or third generation farm.
Yeah, something like
where
that.
they used to farm and have lots of cattle, 300 or some head or more.
Ranch horses, yeah.
Ranch horses. And he said, I had to learn how to shoe the horses because, paying a farrier for 30 horses every 6 weeks was a lot. So he said, I went to farrier school to save money. And then he says, I had nothing but problems. So I went and became a vet to save money. And then he said he was at a barefoot symposium or a farrier symposium. And that's where he met Ida Hammer, who was a barefoot trimmer as well. And he was talking to Ida about all these problems he had and everything. And she said, hey, Tom, have you ever considered going barefoot? And he goes, oh, no, you can't do that in Arizona. The ground's too hard. And she says, you might be surprised. So he said, I'm in the barn one day, and my dad comes out seeing me pull shoes off the horses and thought I was crazy. And he said, you know what? They actually started to heal and change. And one thing I remember him saying was that he's got 3,000 acres. And he says, when I bring a horse home that he figures he wants to rescue, he doesn't put it out on the 3,000 acres because they don't move enough. And Francine and I are like,
what?
Say again, over? We don't understand that. 3,000 acres and they don't move? And he said, no, not functionally. They'll leave the herd and they'll go stand by themselves if they're in pain. He says, I want movement. I want functional movement. So in 30 acres, he built a track system and he mixes the horses up.
Bullies, non-bullies.
Yeah. And
Sore, not sore,
yeah, all kinds of different horses and puts them in a track system and has different gates off the track. So he said you engage their mind, right? One day the gate's open to get to their water.
The next day the other gate's open and that one's closed.
Yeah. And he says when things start to settle down and everybody starts getting along, pull one horse out and put another one in. And it's like, whoa, my goodness. Like the whole...
Just keep everyone moving.
Yeah. And when they get sound, then they can go out to the 3,000 acres. And this was like a big aha for me. And I was like, so you don't need a lot of land to get movement. And then a lady at the barn had given me and I, when I had the horses in the riding stable and all this stuff, I used to do sleigh rides and kids camps and boarding and training and clinics and I had the whole. At one time I had 27 horses, and so this one of the boarders for Christmas gave me this book written by Jamie Jackson called The Paddock Paradise, and understanding how track systems can increase movement and make horses on smaller acreages not so bored. And we've seen amazing track systems across Canada. So,
on 2 acres, on 20 acres, on whatever.
Even a paddock that was like 100 by 200.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you go to the airport security, one day in the morning I was flying somewhere. It was only me and one other guy, and the security guys are sitting there like this, bored, and we're going through our security fence right up and down, and we're passing each other in the lanes. And the guy said, "What's the point of this?" I said, exercise first thing in the morning. You got to walk for 20 minutes before you get to the security guard. So it's not a big room, but you had to travel. So I say to some horse owners, if you don't have a lot of room, put in a security fence, airport security fencing, and then the horses go. And a couple ladies did that on the island, and they said it's the best thing they ever did to their horses. So then who is next? After that, then Francine brought David Landreville. How did you end up finding him?
I don't even know. Well, once you start down that rabbit hole, you keep looking for some reason. It's never enough. So I saw David Landreville was gaining quite a bit of popularity, and I wanted to know why. And he was a farrier, and now he just turned, he just does barefoot, I believe. Well, he does glue-ons or boots or not steel shoes. And we wanted to know what his secret was.
Because his feet were beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, or are beautiful.
So I brought him to my place for a clinic. That was, I don't know, before COVID.
Yeah. Probably
2017 or 18, something like that.
Yeah. You brought him twice. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And So this we call him the Frog Man. That's what we call him. That's his nickname. Sorry, Dave, but you're the Frog Man. Because he was saying about, and you know, all these guys, Thomas, David Landreville, Pete Ramey, Jamie Jackson, Claudia, Jerry, Robert, Bowker, they all say, in order to build a good hoof, you need to have a heel first landing. Okay, that's great. How do you get that? Well, you get the horse to land heel first. Yes, we know that, but how? And it's like, well, you take the toe back, you get them comfortable, you put them on a track system, you boot and pad them. And you know, we were doing all this, but sometimes the horses still just didn't quite get there.
Yeah.
So we brought David up, or Francine brought David up, and we came to the clinic, and he said, you want to give the frog a pedicure. So you want to make sure that there's no dead or zombie frog on the frog. And we were like, zombie frog? What's that? And he says, well, it's just like those zombie movies. There's live frog, there's dead frog, and then there's this quiet little layer in between that is not quite dead and not quite alive, but that's where the bacteria lays. And that's what eventually eats the live frog. And it's hidden by the dead frog. And there's the zombie frog. And so he gave this frog a pedicure with his hoof rasp. We'd never seen anything like this.
With a rasp.
With a rasp, yeah. And made it all, like, I always compare it to the heel of your hand. If you bend your hand back and then put your palm of your hand against the heel of your hand, that's what the heel of the frog should feel like. So he was talking about this, and quite frankly, I was kind of like, well, I don't know. I'm not saying no, but I'm not seeing how just doing that's going to make much of a difference. But hey, we brought him up here. Let's see what he has to say. So somebody brought this little pony, and she walked in, and she had a little bit of laminitis, not a whole lot, and she walked in like this, kind of peg-legged.
That was Peanut.
Oh, was it Peanut? Okay, that was your
my pony, yeah.
Okay, so she walked in, and we had been trimming her, so he said her hoof form looks really good for where she's at in her stage of laminitis. But he said, see this frog? She doesn't want to land on her heels. And it was, you know, because we never touched the frog. We didn't do anything to it. And it was dry. It was in the summertime, so it was kind of gnarly and not higher than the wall, but just not smooth at all. So he gets in there with her rasp, and he's rasping away and rounding off the heel of the frog and taking anything that's dead off and just bringing, showing where the live frog is. And then it kind of looks like an opaque white, like a hard, opaque eraser. Like we all see those erasers that we used to use in kindergarten. Nowadays the kids don't because they have computers. But anyway, when we went to school, we had pencils and erasers. Okay, so anyway. And then when he put her foot down, she's yawning and licking and chewing, and we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Well, I'll tell you what, when she left the arena, she was marching. Like her legs were coming out and she was landing heel first. And Francine and I are like, I can't believe that. Like, look at the difference. And David said, and that's how you build a caudal part of the foot, because you need that heel first landing. And if they're comfortable doing that, they'll do it. So we were like, wow, okay, now you got our attention. And I remember him saying, he said, and the horses like that.
Yes.
They like the exfoliation. And I was like, and once again, I'm like, well, I'm not saying they don't feel it, but how much do they actually like it? And when you put their foot down, then they're yawning and licking and chewing and eyes rolling back in their head. And I thought, okay, well, it definitely feels different. Until one day I'm out at a barn showing one of our students how to groom the frog. And we had a friend of ours along, Cindy, and she was hanging on to the horse, the beautiful big warm blood mare. And I'm showing Terry, the owner, how to rasp the frog. And I feel the horse nibbling on my chap belt. And I said, hey, Cindy, don't let her bite me. And she says, oh no, she's not biting you, she's grooming you. I said, well, whatever you call it, don't let her bite my ass, right? So she says, no, she's not. I go to the back foot, and I'm rasping the frog like David showed us. And then I hear that typical, you know how the horses will do that when you're itching somewhere and they can't get to in their nose. And she says, oh my goodness, now she's trying to groom me. She really likes it. And I said, seriously? Well, she did that on all 4 feet. Like, she was like, yes, yes. So it's almost like, you know, she wanted attention, and it felt so good. So, yeah, David brought a lot of pieces of the puzzles together. It was incredible. So that's one of the things we incorporate into our clinics. So thanks, Dave. That was really huge. And you can see the digital cushions building when that happens.
Yes.
Then I don't know how many times I said to Francine, I really want to go to a dissection clinic. I really, really want to go to a hoof dissection clinic. I want to do more of this. I boil them down, but I want to dissect them. So she says, wow, look at this lady.
Paige boss.
Yeah, so Francine and I went down to one of her clinics, and I'll tell you what, Paige was incredible to work with. And she was the same thing as us. She said she started as having a farrier, and then having problems.
Yeah.
And then started trimming herself. And then said, what the heck? And started boiling the feet, and then started learning how to take them apart in a certain way where you could maintain the structures inside, and when you pull the sole and the hoof capsule off, you could see what was going on with the coffin bone. And I was like, oh, this is incredible to be able to, and she will show you how, and we will now show you too. Thank you very much, Paige, for teaching this. And like you said, it changed the way you look at feet, and boy, has it ever, you know. And we've had, remember the farrier that came to Enderby in BC?
Yeah.
He sat there like this the whole clinic. Right? Didn't say much, and I thought, okay, so we're still friends? And he said, I've been a farrier for 38 years. And he said, wow, you have answered just about every question that I've never been able to figure out with the horses' feet, and why they were sore, why I couldn't fix them, and why they got worse when I did certain things. And he said, this Superman vision that you're talking about with drawing the coffin bone line on, he says, that was an eye-opener. He says, I really didn't know where it was in the foot, because all you do, in farrier school, we just get shown that sagittal cut down the middle. And he said, they need to know this. And I said, I know they do. Why aren't you guys there teaching? Well, we've tried to go to some of the farrier schools, but because we're
not farriers,
they won't let us in the door. So we go in the back door and we teach students to ask the hard questions. Okay. And it's not the farriers that don't want to know or don't want this information. It's the organizations that don't think that it's important. So we're not there yet in Canada. Yeah. Someday.
Hopefully. And Paige has written a book with her partner, Jenny Edwards. Well, many books.
Many.
On dissecting. So, anatomyoftheequine.com. That's what her thing is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Then I needed to learn more about the central nervous system, the TMJ, the nerves that run by and through the TMJ, around the TMJ, and why do some horses become neurological after they're floated, and why do organs fail and become dysfunctional after some horses are floated, and why does hanging a head have that much influence on what happens neurologically, and how can horses become neurological after a float? And you know, the way Jerry did the teeth at Claudia's when we were down there, he did it all with a hand, and he never hung the head. Actually, I remember when I was first into horses and the vet would come out, he'd still use the hand float, but I'd have to hold the horse's head on my shoulder. And Jerry didn't do any of that. He just let the horse walk around while he floated it. And I was like, I've never seen anything like this before. And he says, whatever you do, don't you hang that head. He says, that'll cause a lot of problems with the horse. And, you know, then I started thinking back at my horses, and I was like, okay, yeah. And when he went through his presentation for continuing education, I had a lot more questions when the presentation was over than I had before it. And so I thought, well, Jerry just said, don't do that, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and the end, right? But I said, well, I need to know the workings, right? I need to know the nuts and bolts of this. So that's when I went down to the Vlugan Institute in Texas. Where did I go in Texas? I went to Brownsville, Texas. No, that's too far south.
Anyways.
Anyway, somewhere in Texas. It was hot. That's all I know. Went down there, and it was by Dallas, Fort Worth, somewhere in there. And unless you're an osteopathy student, he doesn't really open the class to anybody. Unless you're like a trimmer or a farrier or a dentist or a specialist in the equine that is trying to correlate. So I wanted to know how the teeth affect the feet. So when I went down there, I was able to sit in on his module that had to do with the TMJ, the central nervous system, the organs, the teeth, and the hooves, and how it all correlated and worked together. And a lot of it was in Latin, and he was so gracious that he actually said, you know, he'd spend a little bit of time with me, and after writing on the whiteboard in all Latin, I'd go up and say, okay, English, please. So he would dumb it down for me enough so I could understand, and it was really interesting to understand, you know, the movement of the horse and the proprioception of the horses and the organs and how it deals with the teeth. And even Dr. Bowker was working with a dentist down south and also in Texas. Phil Ratliff, his name was, and Dr. Bowker would nerve block certain teeth in Amish horses, and then they would drive the horses or work the horses and watch the kids ride the horses and see how neurological they became when the teeth were nerve blocked. And Dr. Bowker said, this is fascinating, because he said when teeth are out of balance, we can see there's a change in the body and the way that the body operates, the organ function, as well as the movement and the proprioception and the feeling within the proprioceptors in the frog and the digital cushion. And this is when Dr. Bowker found that there are nerve receptors that hold the teeth into the skull and into the jaw of the horse in the periodontal ligaments that directly have a connection and communication with the frog and the digital cushion. So that's how their horses know where they are in space and time. And Linda Tellingen-Jones and Robin Hood used to talk about this and said, you know, if the jaw doesn't go somewhere, neither will the body. And that was huge, and that every tooth correlates with an organ, and it's basically a calcified nerve. So that, you know, when we're trying to balance feet and you see horses that are you know, out of balance under saddle and different things like that in movement, it really opened my eyes to there's a lot more to the story than just the feet, you know.
And just
so,
trimming. Yeah.
And just trimming or shoeing or booting.
Yeah. Right?
So that was pretty cool. And then we get to Alicia Edwards. So Alicia, again, is in Cochrane, Alberta. And her mom owns Reva's Remedies. So we have been, you know, studying with a lot of different people and different thoughts of nutrition over the years. And we've had good results. Like, we've had very, very good results with different things. But sometimes the horses wouldn't just completely heal. And then when we started learning more about, you know, dysfunction in the mouth and dysfunction in the guts, and how the gut flora and the enzymes in the stomach can cause inflammation, and if inflammation's not taken care of there, then it can cause laminitis, and we're like, holy moly, okay, now we're going down another rabbit hole. And thank goodness you and I have had an opportunity to travel across Canada, because we wouldn't have met the amazing students and people. Yeah. I mean, how many different...
Our students teach us a lot.
Oh, incredible amounts.
It's because of one of our students that we decided to partner up with, Alicia.
Yeah.
So
we've met prosthetic engineers, we've met analytical engineers, we've met people that work from NASA, doctors, lawyers, scientists, biologists, judges. unbelievable, the people that have come, and they're all like, this is a great course, you guys. And we said, well, I'm really glad you came because you've asked us questions we didn't know about, and that sent us down another rabbit hole of learning. So, you know, if you ask me something, or Francine, that we don't know, we don't go, oh no, we can't talk to you now. We don't know the answer. It's like we go, really? Oh, I didn't know that. We got to know about that. So then that's where we go, and that's why we know stuff and do things.
And go places.
And go places. So when we were out there in BC, especially on the island, like, I mean, man, and just last year we were in Newfoundland and the Maritimes. So we're driving through there and we're looking around. There's horses out there in fields up to their tummies, ponies even. I said to Francine, are we in Oz? And she says, what do you mean? I said, we have not seen a laminitic horse since we've been out here. We never did we?
No.
Somebody says, my horse is fat. And I went, ha ha. No, that's not fat. That's not laminitis. Where are all the fat horses? Have you drowned them in the ocean? Like, where are they? There are no fat horses. We didn't see one.
No.
Anywhere.
Not fat like we know fat.
And you go to the other side of Canada, you know, Vancouver Island, and they're all like, what, you want to talk laminitis? So we'll get to the answer to that in a bit. But, you know, when we were out there, we saw this lady, and she says, here's my pony with Cushing's, and my horse with Cushing's, and my horses with laminitis. And here they are now, lost weight, running around, sound. And I was like, how did you do that? Just from balancing the minerals and hay testing? Well, yeah, that too. But I healed their endocrine system. I said, how? With herbs? Herbs? What do you mean herbs? like what kind of herbs? And they said, well, you know, you need this kind of herb and that kind of herb, and like dandelion, and you need milk thistle, and then you need what were you giving Wheeler?
Oh.
Like bran and vitamins?
Oat bran. Vitamin B6 B6. Oh, and it's just little quantities of this and that, and after a consultation with Alicia, of course.
Yeah.
And then you need time. You need to give them time to heal.
Yeah.
It's like with people. A lot of people's guts are inflamed and not working properly, and that affects the whole body.
Yep.
So you have to find someone who can help you. Heal the gut first, then everything else will follow suit.
Yeah. So that's when we met Alicia, and we said, wow, this is cool. So yes, hay balancing, hay testing, mineral balancing, movement, hoof care, herbs, homeopathy, and vitamins. Did I mention vitamins? I might have already mentioned vitamins, but you know, that whole thing. And it's more of a holistic approach, so you don't really get told that in conventional circles of equine medicine, but it's amazing. And I know right across Canada now, lots of people have taken her course and said it's the best thing we ever did, because I've healed my whole herd, you know. And you can definitely, absolutely make changes to the quality of the hoof capsule 100% with the trace minerals and the major minerals and the hay testing, and making sure you don't have too high a sugar and starch and iron in the water and things like that. But then healing the body in order to keep that progression and that health going in the foot, the body has to heal. And that's what I find is Alicia's got that niche, right? So and now there's a lot more companies coming out now and talking about this. She's not the lone ship on the ocean anymore. Yeah. But I think she was pretty well, and her mom for sure was groundbreaking in this. So and again, we're not saying just follow these people, but if you get on the path with these people, they're going to lead you down the path, the right path to others, instead of going on this other path that it's like, be careful, there's a train coming on one direction and a cliff on the other, so be careful, all right? And then, you know, through the frustration of the whole thing, we're still, you know, it's still out there. You're not professionals. You're not a farrier. Well, when will the industry realize there's two types of hoof care? And if 2.5 years of equine podiatry in a school in South Carolina, the United States of America, is not long enough to learn about trimming and equine podiatry instead of 6 weeks in Oklahoma, I don't know what is.
Why
so
we're not professional.
why we're not professionals across Canada. In the United States, they've stopped that already. They said, yes, we recognize hoof trimmers as having some formal education. It quite hasn't hit mainstream Canada yet. So, and the vet that saw us 2 weeks ago, she says, girls or ladies, she said ladies, you guys are fantastic. I totally 100% agree with what's going on, because I see all this and it's so frustrating because the other veterinarians don't get it. And the farriers don't understand this because they don't get taught this in farrier school. And I'm sad to say that you guys are 20 years ahead of your time. And I looked at Francine and said, we're old, okay? We can't be 20 years ahead of our time, okay? We're going to be at 90 before we're in time. So I'm hoping that this will speed up at some sort, and we'll kind of go and we'll go through a black hole and come out the other side, which isn't actually white line separation. The black hole. So, when we saw that and we heard that and we hear it all over, well, I'll get my farrier, or we'll get the farrier to come out. The Farrier Association wanted us, the barefooters, to join their association. So Rachel Gedaliya, who is the president of our Canadian Equine Hoof Care Association across Canada, and we have many other trimmers that are professional trimmers with degrees in formal education in equine podiatry, all got together and said, you know what? No, we need our own association. We need an association that will support horses in recovery, in rehab, and when, unfortunately, usually they come to trimming clinics and consult the barefoot trimmers when they've exhausted all the vet and all the farrier options and said there's only one more avenue to go, and that's the barefoot.
We're the last resort, so we often come across horses that are beyond help, unfortunately, because that does happen. I mean, they're beings. They have an expiry date like us. So it's very frustrating for us because, we're not the death witches or anything, but we help people understand that sometimes you just can't help that animal anymore.
So that's where what we teach is we go there, we and I mean, what do we say? Maybe 5% of people come and we say, I'm sorry, it's been too long and it's too late to help the horse because there's no bone left. And when the bone's gone, the bone's gone. And when we say gone, we mean gone. Eroded away. And the rest of them, it's like, oh, I didn't know. Yeah. I wasn't told. I wasn't told my horse had contraction. I wasn't told my horse has thrush. Laminitis, So this is being aware. And this is where, again, it's, we add trimming into it because we're up in Houston, and there's a few trimmers and a few farriers, but most people don't have regular, like the farrier comes every 12 weeks to 16 weeks to 6 months. Can't happen. So the owners are starting to have to do it themselves out of desperation. And one hoof that we saw yesterday, it was like this big, it was massive, and there was 2 inches of wall. And the owner said, I didn't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know how to trim this. Can this horse be fixed? And I said, yes, I believe she can, because, after we take all that wall off, we have a good couple years of rehab for this mare, but, her landmarks don't look too bad. And I think she caught her right in time, So we got together and formed this association because the farrier said, well, you come under our umbrella and we'll give you status as trimmers, but then you can't apply anything to the foot. No boots, no glue-ons, no Duplos, no steel shoes. And we said, no, wait a minute. Just because we don't want to nail steel on doesn't mean that we don't believe in protection, because some horses need protection. And we want to be able to say we have the ability to protect. And so that's why we formed our own association. And we also, it's the whole horse approach, guys. We just don't go to the farm and trim the foot or apply a boot and walk away. We go to the farm, we look around, and we sit down and, oh my goodness, when we go to a new place, be prepared to spend 4 hours with us. Question and answer with Christine and Francine. So, when did you get the horse? What's the history of the horse? How long does the horse's feet look like this? Where does the horse live? What do you feed the horse? How much movement does the horse get? What's your water? Have you had your hay tested? Hay tested. Dyslexia 4 found. Okay? So, and
yeah, it's not just about the trimming.
it's not just about the foot. And owners are like, I didn't know. Nobody ever told me that, right? Yeah. And then the students that do go down that path and finally, pull their husbands out of the combine and say, guess what we're doing in this rainy season or this rainy week? We're building a track system. We might have caused some divorces, but anyway, that's besides the point.
We saved the horse.
We saved the horse, and they got a divorce. That's a country song right there, right? So yeah, they put in a track system. They said, wow, like I can't believe the horse is moving better. They're not unsound from that abscess anymore. They're losing weight. They're engaged. They're happy. And she's just from putting a track around my 10-acre field. Mm-hmm. And then Rhonda, you got to tell more people about this. We tell everybody about this, Rhonda. So anyway, we just kind of wanted to introduce ourselves and tell you what you're going to see and learn and who we learned from and
why we do it.
And why we do it, because we're pretty passionate about the horses. And, this is kind of our work vacation as well. And we leave Manitoba in the summer because it's nothing but a buggy swamp right now. And out here, we haven't swat one mosquito, right? It's wonderful. And, we get to see amazing parts of Canada, right from Newfoundland to Vancouver Island. And I really hope that you guys will maybe want to come to a clinic and engage and just learn more. Like, again, it's not all about trimming yourself. It's about lifestyle. It's huge. And prevention. And asking the hard questions to your professionals, to your veterinarians, and your trimming professionals, and your farrier professionals. Okay? Because there's a lot of things. And again, at the very beginning of our book, we have a quote saying, every hoof has a story to tell, much of which goes unread. So, we'll see you guys later. It was nice meeting you virtually, and hopefully we'll meet you in person.
See you at a clinic.
Bye.
Bye.